I wanted to give everyone online and the parents of the PupScouts a little video about the swimming class that we had yesterday. Now, I made a different Teach Your Dog to Swim video that's on YouTube, but that was a couple years ago, so I want to add to that. So yesterday I met with all of the parents and their dogs because individually, with just me teaching them, they needed a lot more practice, a lot more repetitions, and a lot more just slower and more hands-on practice with all their strokes. 2 of the 3 dogs were having trouble with splashing, and so we just needed to try to figure out if we can get them at least better and better, keeping their front paws in the water. So the purpose of yesterday's class, really the goals, was that the form and the skill of swimming, but also launching themselves from standing to swimming. That one step is critical to having a confident dog in the water. So if they can't launch themselves from the standing position to the swimming position, there's no way they will be swimming. So we worked through all these things step by step, although it was a little quick. It always seems there's chaos when there's a class full of people and dogs, and there's mud, and there's a lake. I mean, it's not always the most orderly thing in the world. Also, conditions, both psychological conditions and learning conditions, are constantly changing. And so, whereas, if I'm by myself, I can see, oh, we don't need to do these 3 exercises with this dog. This dog is clearly needing step 4. It may not be as clear to the parents why we switch around or go a certain speed at a certain time. But anyway, here is the order of things the way I intended them to be. So first of all, I talked to everyone about the psychology of dog psychology as it relates to geography. And it always does in every way. I could rant about that for hours, but in particular with a body of water, if you're trying to learn those skills that I mentioned, most places are not going to meet the qualities that you're looking for. So you want to look for a warm body of water, one that's not so unpleasant for the dog to be in. You're looking for a nice muddy bottom, a sandy bottom, something that is not slippery, not intimidating, and is safe for you and the dog. But something that doesn't present additional fears or challenges. Then you want something that has a gradual entry. So, the dog can easily transition from the standing to swimming. It's like, an easy grade. It's not like a jump, unless and until you get to a certain point in the lesson. So that's why I chose this lake that had a creek flowing into it. That way the lake itself could serve just to practice the strokes, and the drop off from the bank to the creek can help with the dog's launching. So also, let's see what else. If the dogs wanted to swim across the lake, or the creek, I'm looking for a distance that's appropriate for them to be successful, and for it not to be too much and too exhausting, but is enough that they are pushing their boundaries a little bit. And for this group, they were at the point of doing a 15 to 20 foot span across the creek. Also, I was looking for a place that's not too distracting, but there are things going on. There are birds around, there are boats, there are noises of people occasionally. There are some distractions, but it's not overwhelming. Of course, that the parents can get in the water and swim around too, making sure that the parents can have life jackets or wetsuits if needed. And then that there's no current, there's no intimidating movement of the water that's going to push or pull them in any direction. So it's calm, steady water. And so all of these factors influence the psychology of the dogs. So another thing to consider, and it's hard for me just verbally to describe this, but if the bank of the water is smooth and going that direction, like it's not coming back at you, the land is not coming back at you as it juts out, then the dogs are more likely to run along the bank. They're not likely to swim across the water in a place like that. But if there's a little peninsula, so imagine like a puzzle piece that has a piece coming up like that, and then a bank like up here. So that little piece of land that's sticking out, they will swim across that, because in their perception, the dogs think that's the shortest way to go. There's no other way. I'm not going to go backtrack and go around the bank. Some that are very stubborn will. I've seen huskies do it. I've seen hounds do it. But most dogs will, swim across if they have the basic skills down already. So keep all that in mind and choose your locations really thoughtfully. The reasons we were getting together is really to just give as many repetitions for the dogs and keep it as positive as possible. Having more people there always helps, to just do more times with each dog rather than just me doing everything. We wanted to keep things positive, but there's a fine line between things just being really positive and just being like, dude, you got to do this, right? So there's a calm, firm, but positive way of leading dogs, of, holding their harness and then slowly, steadily waiting for them to go like this, and then put them forward to do that jump into the water. We don't want to baby them too much. We don't want to help them too much. We want to encourage independence and encourage self-sufficiency in their body movements. So a thing that some tools that were helpful for us and are always helpful in my groups is that I bring dogs that are influencers, that are mentors, teachers to the other dogs. And so I brought Jonah, Wally, and Raven, my 3 dogs. They are great swimmers, confident swimmers, and I knew these dogs, the PupScouts, are very motivated to stay with their friends. And so if Jonah swam across, I knew that Yuji here, he would go across. And I knew that if other dogs went across, let's say Elle over there and Sunshine would watch them and learn their skills. And that if the whole group, and especially if their parents went across, that is the main motivator. So keep this in mind when you think about motivators related to people. So dogs want to be with their parents, obviously. If the parent is the thing the dog has to get to, whether they stand on the bank and someone else takes the dog out into the water, maybe 20 feet, and lets them swim back to the parent, that is the easiest thing to do. Harder than that is going to be holding the dog back and the parent go into the deeper water or run into the water, making it silly and fun and provoking a chase instinct with the dog. Somebody holds them back and they go into the water. That's harder for a dog, right? Of course they want to get to the bank. So you have to think about the progression of steps really thoughtfully. But them being part of a pack is super important. Bring along some labs, some dogs that love swimming and are great at swimming when you're teaching your dog. I do give them treats, but only when they're on solid ground. Let's see what's next. So I did encourage everyone to work with other people's dogs, but we didn't seem to have enough focus as a group to do that. Let's see, the order of the day. So here we go. So I asked people in the beginning, ideally, to pick up their own dog and to cradle them first, just standing on solid ground. Picking them up with the chest and then the stomach, which, let's see if I can even show you that, is the best thing to do. So that looks like this. Here, Elle, you're a good girl. Oh, whoa, you're okay, baby. You're okay. She was definitely surprised by that. But if you can see, I'm holding her ahead of her back legs and in her chest area here. That's a great position to, don't do what I do and scare them, but to pick them up, hold them firm, bring them into the water, go deep enough that the water's at least to your waist. Then crouch down. You can transition your hands away so that they're not as close to your body if they're secure enough. And they can start doing their strokes. You want to hold their butt up. If you can use their harness to kind of pull their front down if they're splashing with their front paws. And then you can let them go. You can transition from that position to then holding the harness and having them go to the bank. So that's one step, is just taking them out and having them swim back to the bank, doing that technique. And then from standing to, and then making it deeper and deeper, but then going from standing to swimming. So bringing them out as far as you can, and then getting to that point where it's a little too deep. You just want to securely hold and kind of lift them a little bit, and instinctively they're going to go like this. As soon as they do that, you kind of send them forward. And the point of that is you're trying to get them to practice exactly what they would do on their own, so that they're going to do it over and over, and they're going to be confident to do it on their own because they've practiced so much with you in a way that was peaceful, easy, and built their confidence. The next exercise is to, stand close to the launch place and a few feet out, and have the dog swim to their parents. So another person would stand at that place where there's a drop, do the same thing, and then the dog swims to their parent. Even easier would be they can swim to their parent who is standing in the direction of the bank. And then practicing having them swim. If you can be in the water, especially with something like a boogie board or the like, you can paddle, 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 and then lift up their hips. So I like to lift them here on their hip, like just at their belly. And we realized that position actually didn't help our two swimmers who were struggling. Instead, Elle's mom said she put her hand right between her legs and lifted, and actually that made all the difference. She ended up with that kind of assistance, having her front end forward. So that was amazing. We definitely saw things started to change a bit, and she needs a lot more practice, but doing that with your dog right between their legs seems like a good technique. So I never used that technique in the past because, maybe that's a little awkward with client dogs, but now I know. And then we went to the creek area where they just had to launch and swim across. We had practiced their movements enough, and I had noticed with my group, the dogs were just being babies. They were just being babies around their parents. They kept swimming toward their parents. They weren't taking as many risks as they would take with me. So I encouraged the parents to just get them near that edge and put them over. And if the parent could get in the water and swim across themselves, even better. And someone else launches the dog towards the parent, or if the parent can swim alongside the dog, that would be great. So those are the things that we attempted to accomplish yesterday. All the dogs made significant improvements, and that's what I'm looking for. I hope that helps you. And in the future, if I can make some visuals to go along with this video, I will.